Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the technique Bow of Compulsion and some of the more important principles, rules, concepts, theories, strategies, and a little bit of its history. So let's start out with the history. Why are we talking about the history? Well, a lot of people don't like this technique because they undervalue what it teaches. They don't understand it. And I feel part of that is because they don't understand its history. So originally, when Mr. Parker created the system, he had offensive techniques, which means we weren't waiting for the opponent to attack. We would initiate the conflict. But he felt that it was important to remove them so that we could have a self-defense system. Well, Bow of Compulsion is a degree of that. If you notice, what we're doing is we're initiating a defensive maneuver. I'm putting my arm out to try to prevent him from coming towards us. But this could be seen as an offensive maneuver, where I'm pushing the opponent away or trying to make contact to the opponent. So this is introducing that concept that he had of offensive techniques, where we're not really being offensive, but it could be perceived that way. So the other part of the history that we're going to talk about is hair grabbing. If you notice clutching feathers, we're dealing with an attack where they grab our hair. Well, what would be an opposite of that? Us grabbing somebody's hair. Well, originally, there was a very well-known self-defense technique where if you grab somebody's hair, they would use both of their hands to pin it and then create this lock. But what makes Kenpo so innovative is the fact that Mr. Parker would identify motion, look for problems, and then solve those problems. And this is no exception to that. So if you notice, the way that this would be solved would be by anchoring my elbow, changing the alignments of the wrist lock, and delivering that elbow strike to the face. So how does this pertain to Bow of Compulsion? Well, if you take a look at what we're doing, we're basically doing the same thing, just at a different height zone. So rather than being high, we're now at the low. But like a lot of the stuff in the system, it is purposely hidden to the untrained eye. So now that we talked about the history, let's talk about the strategy. What is the strategy of Bow of Compulsion? Well, we made a mistake. We've given up our major hand. They made a mistake. They used two of their hands against ours. So our strategy is going to be simple. Get our major hand back while getting the upper hand so that we can use it. So let's talk about how that actually falls into play. Why would we give up our major? Well, remember, there's two reasons why we do things. We want to or we have to. Let's assume that I'm with my child and a person is coming. I might have to use my major hand to keep them away while putting them there. But again, if we were in a scenario where it's just us, I most likely would use my minor hand so I can set up my majors. But for whatever reason, we gave up our major. Luckily, again, they made the mistake of using both of their hands against one of our hands. So now we're going to get the upper hand. We're going to use our left hand to physically get the upper hand, but get our arm out so that we can conceptually get the upper hand. Because now we have both of their hands pinned with one of our hands and giving ourselves a free weapon. So how does this actually work? Well, if you notice, we're doing the same thing we did earlier when I demonstrated of the hair grab, but for a different purpose. So rather than stepping in to try to elbow the head, what we're doing is changing the alignment for the wrist. So rather than me trying to rely on my muscles to pull this hand out, which I'm more likely not going to be able to do, or relying on my shoulder to pull this down, what I'm doing is changing my alignment so that I can use my body to get my hand free. But notice what I'm doing with my left hand. Right now, I did nothing, which means he has the upper hand and he's going to be taking advantage of it. So the idea here is to do mirroring. I started out with my right hand to control the gauge. Now I'm going to do my left hand to control the gauge. But we're also taking advantage of the fact that we are pinning, so we're keeping a check on their weapons. This is going to bring in the concept of black dot focus. So remember, the idea in Kenpo is that we want to have a black dot focus, where we're focusing on everything around us. But in this case, we're going to be doing it through the hand, and rather than using it through eyes, we're doing it through contact. So what I mean by that is once my hands make contact and we're focused here doing all our stuff, I have to be aware of what I'm touching. If at any given point I no longer feel that contact, I can't sit here doing this because that's where he's going to start taking advantage of it. So keep in mind, this brings in the concept of reading. Remember, we are reading the situation, not the notes in the book. I don't have to do this step 1 through 3, 4, 5. I can change it at any time. This brings in the concept of the formulation equation. So if you feel like you need to change it for whatever reason, it's okay to change it. So let's continue here. This is going to bring in the concept of foot maneuvers are done as needed. If you notice where we started, I had to step forward to change my alignment so I can keep my elbow anchored so that I'm able to use my body to pull the arm out. Pretending I was already in a neutral bow, I might have to do a pull drag or a push drag. So again, foot maneuvers are done as needed. The idea here now is that we have a rule. Don't cross the center line without taking advantage of it. Or don't make a cocker separate motion. I don't want to just get my hand out so that I can hit him with the rich hand. Rather, we're going to try to use that motion to deliver a strike. In this case, it's called nip the tip. And that's exactly what it sounds like. I want to aim for the tip and nip it. Now we're going to reverse the motion using the open-ended triangle and then the concept of fitting. We're going to use our rich hand to come back up and hit anything that we can get. From here, we're going to be using fitting again to hit to the inside of the knees. Why the inside of the knees? Well, the knees are very strong at bending forward and backwards. They're not good at bending sideways. So we're trying to get the maximum angle of incidence so we can go against the part that has the least backing or the least support. And again, using fitting, we're going to try to fit the knuckles in the little holes and then again on the opposite side. But remember what we said earlier about foot maneuvers are done as needed. Well, remember that we have 3 dimensions. So just like we control the depth, we now have to control our height. If I feel that I need to drop down to my knee to have a better alignment so that I can deliver the strike, that's okay. If you feel like you don't need to and you can stay on a wide kneel or close kneel, that's also okay. Remember, they're done as needed. Just like they're done through depth, you can also do them through height. Now keep in mind what I said earlier. If at any point I feel like something's happening, I can disengage and change and do something else. And this brings in the concept of our techniques length. We have short version, middle versions, and long versions. The techniques are designed to teach us the long version of the technique. But again, like I keep saying, if you read the situation and you need to change, it's okay to do a short or a middle version of the technique. In this case, something like coming back up. If I start to hit, I can come straight up. I don't have to stay down there and work on the legs. But let's continue. Let's assume everything went ideally and we want to focus on the technique. I get my hits and then we're going to be able to cover out. So this is where we are left in the middle of a fight. You can choose whether you want to cover out or if you wanted to do something else and continue the technique. We're going to just grab our kit and head out. So now that we talked about the rules, concepts, principles, theories, strategies, and a little bit of its history, let's demonstrate it once fairly slow so you can see it done applied. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.